All right, day 2 and unit 2, we're doing particle model of matter. Before you listen to this video, listen to the video that your teacher posted on your Google Classroom. I will also put the link in here below. So, particles. Particles. Matter. Matter is anything that takes up space or has mass, or even if we cannot see it with our eyes. A particle model. All matter is made up of small particles. The particles are constantly moving. There are empty spaces between the particles. There are attractive forces and repelling forces between the particles, like a magnet. The particles constantly collide against each other and against the sides of the container without causing the kinetic energy to be transformed into other forms of energy. The average kinetic energy of all the particles remains constant, providing the temperature remains constant. There are different states of matter. You get solids, liquids, and gases. Solids like ice, liquids like water, and gases like steam. So the solids are particles. The particles are closely packed together in a regular arrangement. They do not move around, but vibrate against each other. They have strong forces holding them together and the very small spaces between them. Liquids are particles. The particles are loosely arranged, but still quite close together, as you can see there. Particles can move quite fast and slide past each other. They have weaker forces holding them together, and they take the shape of the container. If you think ice, when you throw water into any type of glass, it's the shape of that glass. And they have very small spaces between them. As you can see, small spaces, but not as small as the solid. Gases. There's no particular arrangement for gases. The particles are far from each other, you can see. Forces are extremely weak. Particles can move very fast and freely and can collide with each other. There are very big spaces between the particles compared to those of solids and liquids, and it fills the whole container because it just moves around wherever it wants. Diffusion. The forces between the particles determine how free they are to move. Weak forces and high energy makes the particles move a lot, and strong forces and low energy that doesn't make the particles move so much. It's quite restricted. A definition: diffusion, a process whereby particles in liquids and gases move, separate and spread from highly concentrated area to an area with a lower concentration. Heating or cooling can cause a material to undergo a physical change. When energy, heat, is added to the particles of a solid, the movement energy of the particles increases. The particles move further away, therefore becoming a liquid. The more movement energy the particles have, the weaker the forces between the particles. If the particles receive enough energy, the solid melts. When the material has melted completely, the kinetic energy will start to increase again as the temperature increases. When the material has melted completely, the kinetic energy will start to increase again as the temperature increases. If the liquid particles have enough energy, the forces between the particles will break, and so it can move much further apart, like a gas, and it will change to a gaseous state. That way, the physical appearance of water changes when energy is added or removed when it's cooled. So when you freeze something, you make something from a liquid state into a solid state, and when you boil something, you go from a liquid state to a gaseous state. And this is the particle model of matter for water. So first we have a solid, then it melts, then we get a liquid, and then when we heat it up again, it's a gas, and then it condensates and it's a liquid again, and then we freeze it and it's a solid. We're going to learn about density. Density. All matter possess mass. The mass gives an indication of the amount of matter that the material consists of. Mass is measured in grams or kilograms. Quick facts. 1,000 grams is 1 kilogram. Apparatus with which mass can be determined. Any kind of scale, really. And the volume of liquids can be measured with measuring cups of some kind. The general units for volume of materials are cubic meter, cubic centimeter, and cubic millimeter. The material with the largest mass per centimeter has the greatest density. Some materials have low density and others have high density. The more dense, less dense. The density of a material will depend on the nature of the particles and the strength of the forces between the particles, the size and the type of the particles it is made of, and the size of the spaces between the particles. Definition: a density of a material is the amount of mass in a given volume of the material. So density is the amount of mass in the volume of the material. Density is expressed in G centimeters minus 3. I don't know how to pronounce that. Just remember that little thingy there. Solids, liquids, and gas. Here we are again. So the density increases. So here it's decreases. So here it's very dense, less dense, not dense at all. Water is an exception, actually. Ice is less dense than water, which is a liquid. Therefore, ice can float on water. And the density of water is 1 gram per centimeter minus 3 thingy at the top. Ice, a lower density, floats on soda, which is a higher density. And oil, which has a lower density, also floats on water, which has a higher density. And cork has a lower density and it therefore also floats on water.